Welcome everyone. My name is Shawn. I'm the owner of One with Nature. I trust you're all well. Today we have a video on bone and joint health. I'm going to show you the cheat codes for repairing, remineralizing, rejuvenating bones, joints, and the musculoskeletal system using minerals, herbs, roots, barks, strange substances from far off lands, and much more. So if you have a bone to pick with a bone, I can help you. So to start, if we want to strengthen, stabilize, support bones and joints, we need to have a basic understanding of what the body uses for maintenance and repair. Thinking that we just need more calcium, just pop some calcium tablets and everything's going to be all right. Give them CalMag and let God sort them out. That's a very popular idea, but it is far from the truth. You are looking at someone who has put his musculoskeletal system through more than its fair share of stresses. I have had multiple drunk and just plain crazy drivers try to wipe me off the face of the earth since the mid-1970s. Back in the mid-80s, I was a driver of a car which was involved in according to the onlookers, an amazing, spectacular collision, courtesy of an extremely drunk driver. A career firefighter looked at the car that I was pulled out of and said in his entire career he had never seen anybody survive a wreck like that. My passenger and I, we skated out of that one. Lucky to be alive, apparently, for which I'm very grateful. Was taken to the hospital, discharged with a bruised heart, fractured rib, knee damage, bits and pieces of skin missing, some cool scars, and some other assorted niceties that I left there with. Multiple years of martial arts injuries, multiple cycling injuries, knife wound to the finger joint, freak accidents, bacterial infections actually eating holes in the joint itself. I fixed that. Multiple knee injuries, meniscus damage, ligament damage, shoulder damage with the associated shoulder pain, which was not insignificant, damage to the fascia, thumb almost ripped out of the joint, air nail, 2.5 inch long air nail in one side of my finger, out the other. I have that picture somewhere. Extra crunchy cartilage I was able to smooth out over the years. So my short time on this earth has been a one-man bona fide joint rehabilitation program. And I don't really consider all those things I went through to be significant at all. Not complaining in the least. It taught me a lot. I've talked to people who would pay a king's ransom to trade their injuries for mine. But I'm glad to tell you what I've done to repair, heal, support, fortify my bones and joints over the years. What's worked for me? I'm going to share with you what I have done to keep myself pain-free and limber, even up to the advanced age you see before you. Just about everything I'm going to mention today is what I've been talking about for years. So by making this video from now on, if anyone contacts me and has questions regarding bone and joint health, bone and joint repair, cartilage, I can just direct them to this video. And this is why I decided to start making videos again after 3.5 years absence or so, because spending an hour or whatever discussing the basics now will save me hundreds of hours or more in the future. So let's get to the basic building blocks, the 4 B's of the bones and the joints, and how we can use this knowledge to our advantage. Every show has a star, and the stars of today's show are silica, aka Orthosilicic Acid, which comes from silica anyway. I'll be using them interchangeably, and vitamin C. Orthosilicic acid is vital to bone health. You have to have it. The only bone orthosilicic acid will not help is your funny bone. There are different species of silica. For our purposes today, I'll be referring to orthosilicic acid. So when you hear me say silica, It's orthosilicic acid, and it can be an absorbable type of silica, and that's what we want. Silica is needed for the creation of collagen and elastin. Collagen is what the body uses to build a collagen bone matrix. You can think of it as this complex scaffolding system inside the bone. This collagen matrix or scaffolding system is built out like a spider web across the bone. Then this collagen matrix is impregnated with minerals supplied by the bloodstream. It is mineralized to give it flexibility and strength under a variety of conditions. Silica is the crucial mineral which makes all of this possible, because without silica, you don't have the ability to create the collagen bone matrix in the first place. When a person has osteoporosis, they do not have a lack of calcium. They do not have a lack of magnesium or vitamin D or vitamin K or vitamin A, as is often thought. Osteoporosis is a loss of the collagen bone matrix or the scaffolding system inside the bone, because if you don't have this matrix made up of collagen, then you have nothing to deposit the minerals onto. Mineral deposition onto the collagen matrix increases the strength, the density, the flexibility of the bone. This is what we want. When you do see someone with a loss of the collagen bone matrix, there are many reasons, but most likely it's from a lack of silica in the diet, or they have plenty of silica in the diet, they just can't absorb it and put it to work. Or they don't have enough vitamin C in their diet, because vitamin C is needed for collagen formation. The collagen matrix or scaffolding system inside the bone needs to be mineralized for optimum bone health, but you cannot mineralize what does not exist. You have to have the collagen matrix in the bones in the first place to deposit all of those beautiful minerals into. And for that, you need collagen, and to get collagen, you need silica and vitamin C. So here we have the collagen matrix or scaffolding system. The phrase bone microarchitecture is sometimes used under varying definitions. Now, the top two rows here, this is a collagen matrix with a small amount of silica interspersed throughout. And you need silica to have a collagen matrix in the first place. You'll also have hydroxyapatite crystals in here as well. I've left that out of this video for the sake of simplicity, since we're concentrating on silica and orthosilicic acid. And without silica, you don't have an ideal bone matrix in the first place. So silica comes first. So these first two rows, let's say this is the collagen matrix in leg bones, like this guy here. This is a femur. So in this collagen matrix, it's trying its best. It wants to be healthy. But the owner of these leg bones is a person who walks to their front door, walks to their car from the front door, get in their car, they drive 30 to 45 minutes to work, they walk to a cubicle, they sit behind a desk for 8 hours, they drive home, they walk from the driveway to the couch, and they sit there watching TV or YouTube until it's time for bed. Did I mention that this person gobbles antacids like they're candy, which results in neutralized stomach acid, which means they're not converting the silica, if they have any, in their diet into orthosilicic acid, because they have such weak, high pH stomach acid. They don't have adequate vitamin C in their diet, probably because they're eating ultra-processed junk food filled with vegetable seed oils and carbs, which steals the vitamin C. And then the whole cycle repeats over and over and over. That's the first two rows. The bottom two rows, this is someone who walks the dog 30 minutes in the evening when they come home from work. They go to the gym, do some leg presses or deadlifts with a decent amount of weight. They don't have to hit a personal record every single time they go to the gym, or maybe they just like to walk. They walk 10,000 steps, not every day, but a few times a week. Maybe they live on the 4th floor of a building with no elevator. So it's down 4 flights of steps in the morning and then up 4 flights of steps in the evening. What's the difference? Well, a huge part is electricity. The first person has minimal stress being put on their leg bones. No stress, no electricity being generated in the bones. Bones generate electricity. This electrical charge results in, the term is electrodeposition of minerals, but it results in the triggering of electric charge, which results in the body depositing minerals, pulling them out of the bloodstream and depositing them into the collagen matrix. Okay? Now this creates a mineral-rich, dense, fracture-resistant, flexible, damage-resistant, but strong set of leg bones. And weight to performance ratio is impressive. To get these 2 bottom rows, you need to be able to absorb silica, you need to have vitamin C, and you need stress applied to the leg bones. That's your minimum. Do you want to see what a collagen matrix looks like? With none of those requirements applied. I'll show you. I spent a lot of time on this, so I hope I got it right. See that? There's nothing there. This is basically osteoporosis. You don't have any collagen. There's no collagen matrix. Not good. This is what you want. Vitamin C supplementation is relatively easy. It's not a brain teaser. You can get vitamin C from fruits, berries, or supplements if you don't want to eat the fruits and berries. If you want to get silica in your body in a cheap, easy to use, easy to purchase, very available form, diatomaceous earth or bamboo powder both work well. Both are high in silica. But that's just step 1. To guarantee that you're taking that silica from your diet or supplementation and turning it into orthosilicic acid, which is the form of silica that the body uses for bone repair and a whole lot more. There's different species of silica. Then we need to mix that bamboo powder or diatomaceous earth powder with water and an acid first. And a really easy way is to simply go to the health food store, get a large container of apple cider vinegar, put half a teaspoon of diatomaceous earth or bamboo powder in the bottle, shake it like crazy. Now you've mixed a silica source with water and an acid, and you just created orthosilicic acid. So bone health. Do you want healthy bones? You need orthosilicic acid and vitamin C. Lung health. Did emphysema or bronchitis do a number on your lungs? You need orthosilicic acid and vitamin C. Cardiovascular health. Do you want arteries and veins with thick walls that won't blow out in your brain, giving you a stroke? You need orthosilicic acid and vitamin C. Skin health. Do you want firm skin, which looks great after the age of 40, 50, 60, and beyond? Then at a minimum, you need orthosilicic acid and vitamin C. Orthosilicic acid is involved in all of those and a whole lot more. Orthosilicic acid is present in all tissues of the human body, even the brain. Do you hate wrinkles? The recipe I just gave you and vitamin C will go a long ways to keeping you wrinkle-free. When you have ample amounts of silica in the bones, you not only have the collagen matrix building out, spreading out in the bone, but that silica can now be activated in order to cause mineral deposition into the collagen matrix. When the collagen matrix in the bones is compressed, stressed, slightly twisted. And again, you can do this on purpose with weight-bearing or load-bearing exercises. This creates a piezoelectric effect in the silica built into the collagen matrix, which triggers the depositing of minerals into that collagen matrix. The body pulls those minerals out of the bloodstream, puts them to work, sticks them in the collagen matrix. You can take as many minerals as you want, but unless you have silica to build a collagen matrix in the first place, and unless your bones are stressed, then you don't have an ideal situation where minerals will be deposited into the collagen matrix in ample amounts for optimal bone health. This is important after the age of 40 especially. So silica in the diet converts to orthosilicic acid when exposed to water and an acid, maybe stomach acid. You get more orthosilicic acid out of silica when you mix the diatomaceous earth or bamboo powder or silica in the diet with an acid like apple cider vinegar or stomach acid. What we're doing here, we're just trying to get as much orthosilicic acid out of the bamboo or the diatomaceous earth or our diet as possible, especially, like I say, if you're over the age of 40. This is when the stomach acid begins to weaken. The body uses the orthosilicic acid to build the collagen matrix. It responds electrically under stress and triggers the depositing of minerals into the collagen matrix. So I just told you the same thing 3 different ways. That's how important silica is. It's essential you understand this. Silica is cheap and it helps you tremendously. Silica also aids in the formation of collagen itself everywhere in the body. Silica is extremely important and it's cheap. You can buy pounds of diatomaceous earth for very little money. This book came out in 1985. It's called The Body Electric by Robert O. Becker. I've had this copy for 28 years. This book describes the role of electricity in healing wounds and broken bones. Knowing that the bones do generate electricity, piezoelectric charges, taking that bit of knowledge and building on it could enable a person to help grow back, let's say, tips of fingers, which have been damaged beyond repair, supposedly, maybe even cut off. Industrial accidents, job site accidents, circular saws, table saws, jigsaws, horrific damage from power tools. I've actually seen in person. A year after this book came out, I was on a job site when a carpenter turned his index finger into a pile of hamburger with a jigsaw. So took him to the emergency room. It was really bad. Destroyed the tendons in the finger. Couldn't bend his finger for the rest of his life. If I had had the information then, which I have today, maybe he could have regained full use of that finger, but I'll never know. Now, in this book, Robert O. Becker describes the use of pure silver in the acceleration of bone and wound healing, stubborn, broken bones, where healing, they just can't get the wound or the bone to heal under any circumstances. So they added a fine silver matting, like superfine gauze, but made entirely of silver. This enabled these stubborn wounds and bone breaks to heal up just fine. But I do wonder, however, if the silver was less about silver's antimicrobial properties and more about silver being an excellent conductor of electricity, and therefore helping electricity to simply flow much better into the wound, around the bone break, and the body used that additional electric charge to do the real healing. So let's talk about some other nutrients. We have amino acids, glycine, lysine, proline. We have calcium, finally, fits in here. Boron. Boron is important. Boron helped me a lot. It was a tremendous help for me. I've told a lot of people about boron, and many of them were helped. Magnesium is important. I prefer magnesium malate. Boron actually helps you absorb magnesium and calcium better. You absorb more magnesium when you have enough boron in the diet, or through supplementation, and it only takes 3 milligrams of boron a day to do the job. That's not a lot. Sometimes you just need a tiny bit of a mineral to right the ship and get it going straight again. Boron increases the amounts of superoxide dismutase and other key enzymes, very helpful. It is a preventative and a therapeutic for certain types of, I'll just say the big C that nobody ever wants to have happen to them. The amino acid taurine is important here. The amino acid taurine is important to your overall health. I cannot overemphasize the importance of taurine. Problems with your tendons? Try some taurine. It's great stuff. That's why I have a kilo of it sitting in my kitchen. And then you have other minerals needed in the formation and repair of bone. You have manganese, copper, phosphorus, zinc, strontium, fluoride, well, natural fluoride. And then you have the vitamins. Let's not forget the vitamins, which are easy to get. Vitamin A, vitamin D, vitamin K, vitamin E. Sex hormones are important here, and estrogen does factor into osteoporosis at times. I won't have time to get into the sex hormones in this video. Vitamins they're pretty self-explanatory. They're easily obtained. It's not difficult to get all of these. The only thing I would say is that vitamin C is arguably at the top of the list. Vitamin K is important, of course. I prefer the MK4 form of vitamin K2 for reasons that are outside the scope of this video. I might make a separate video about that. So let's look at some well-known ways to support bone and joint health, and perhaps a few not so well-known ways. Bone broth is a very simple way to get many of those minerals. Vitamin C will not survive the long cooking times. 3 days is a long time to simmer something. The fat soluble vitamins, vitamins E, D, A, K, will survive much longer than vitamin C ever will when simmering a bone broth. Vitamin C degrades quickly under the effects of heat, light, and moisture. So you want to make sure that the bones you're using are from an animal who grazed on land, which was not contaminated with God knows what from who knows where. Make sure you're getting bones from a quality source, best source you can. Bone broth is an age-old nourishing liquid. The long simmering times help pull the minerals out of the bones and crack the bones to get more out of them. Your body grabs on to what is in that broth, and then the magic begins. I'm not a fan of commercial bone broths. Some of them have MSG as an ingredient, and you do not want to risk a seizure from too much glutamic acid overexciting your brain. A lot of people's brains are already overexcited, especially after the stress of the last 2 years. So you want to eliminate that. Tendons, ligaments, cartilage. What happens as we age? We dry out. It's weird but true. We become desiccated shells of our former selves. And when tendons, ligaments, cartilage dry out, we start to notice problems with our joints, and they will only get worse many times. This is where our knowledge of the great moistening herbs comes into play. Out of the hundreds of thousands of plant species, moistening herbs are a very small category, but they can come to our rescue in times of need. So learning about these moistening herbs is always going to be time well spent. The best moistening herb I've ever used, ever seen, ever heard of for the musculoskeletal system is Solomon's seal, Latin Polygonatum, biflorum, multiflorum, odoratum. And this is the root of joint rejuvenation. This guy right here. I bottled these a long time ago. These are my break glass in case of emergency Solomon's seal roots. It's for a rainy day. Always check for contraindications before using any herb. I have collected so many testimonials over the last 13, 15 years, maybe, since I started telling people about Solomon's seal root. When I made my original Solomon seal root video, I think it was back in 2011. It was a vitally important remedy for bones and joints then. I consider it irreplaceable now, after years of testimonials just compounding. When I made my video back in 2011 on Solomon seal, even at that point, I was coming in late in the game, hundreds of years late, because Solomon seal has been used we know, for at least hundreds of years. But Solomon seal at that time was not very well known, not like nettles or calendula. I was telling people about Solomon seal years before I made that short video about it. But in the last 11 years, it has exploded. A gentleman who I'm friends with, he would go out and wildcraft herbs for very well-known names in the herbal supplement industry. He told me that the time and effort involved in wildcrafting Solomon seal root and false Solomon seal root as well, which is also excellent. The time and effort is way more now than it was 12, 15 years ago in his area of the world. All the easy Solomon seal has been collected, has been found, gobbled up, and he was expressing concern that someday Solomon seal might not be as easy to go out and get in the near future. So if you have the means, if you have the knack, I suggest planting some Solomon seal, false Solomon seal yesterday. It's not just for bones and obvious joints, but the spine as well. You can restore volume and moisture to the intervertebral discs themselves. These discs will actually lose a sizable amount of moisture and volume with age. It's called disc desiccation. It's as bad as it sounds, and it doesn't feel all that great either. Silica, once again, will be of use here in rebuilding these desiccated discs. Good combination would be Solomon seal and bamboo powder or diatomaceous earth. I personally have used Solomon seal on a regular basis for well over 11 years. I had a calcium deposit on a rib from when my rib cracked in a car accident, of course, when once again, some drunk driver behind the wheel of a 4,000-pound Lamb destroyer decided to try and assassinate me. God, I miss the 80s, but I could reach back easily and feel this thing for years. It was there for decades. So 11 years ago, I'm on the phone with a guy who is just telling me about how Solomon seal has helped him. It's just non-stop stream of consciousness. And he said that he said in passing that he noticed that a sizable calcium deposit had disappeared since taking the Solomon seal daily. So while I'm on the phone with him, I reach back, I touch the rib, calcium deposit is gone. I couldn't believe it. I've also had a calcium deposit on the finger joint. That's gone. That was there for decades. That's gone. I had a lady use Solomon seal for the first time. She needed it for her joints, which it did help her with. But she said to me in a low tone of voice, "Would this help with constipation?" And I thought a minute, and I said, yeah, it's a moistening herb, moistening for the whole body, lungs, bones, joints. Why not the intestines? And she confided in me that she had lost, I think it was 8 pounds in a day or so, just by the Solomon seal relieving her constipation. Had many reports from ex-military guys, ex-paratroopers using Solomon seal. Their knees were damaged from jumping out of planes, a lot of training. Martial artists love Solomon seal root. Jiu-jitsu practitioners helps them with overstressed knees, ankles, shoulders, elbows from joint locks where you crank it just a bit too far. We always called it the safety click, where the elbow joint makes a small, and then the next thing that happens is you're ripping it to pieces. We call it the safety click. But I've talked to people who needed a cane occasionally to get around. They told me they were not far from being a cripple, but after using Solomon seal, they could do deep knee bends. They could jump off the bed of a 4x4 truck onto the pavement, when previously just that simple act would have put them in bed for a few days, would have really injured their knees. And this is the point of the conversation where I stop the person and I say, look, this is not a Marvel movie, okay? I know you drank a strange potion and now you feel like you've got superpowers, but you don't. You don't have superpowers now. If you keep pushing it, you're going to injure yourself. So enjoy the enhanced movement, the pain relief, the lack of swelling, flexibility, what have you. But live your life sensibly. Don't try to live your life dialed up to 11 if you were living at a 4. If you're now at a 7, after using supplements and supplements, what have you, enjoy the 7 that you have. Slow and steady wins this race. Don't go crazy. I don't care how strong you are. I don't care how athletic you are. I don't care how physically fit or unique you are or you think you are. Nobody is bigger than nature. Nature always wins. That's why the company is called One with Nature, because we're going to use nature to survive nature. But in the end, nature always wins. Solomon seal will help with bone spurs as well. Bone spurs can be due to tendons, which rub against the bone. And the bone responds by fortifying. It thinks it's under attack, so it builds out more bone. And now you've got this painful rubbing. After layer and layer of bone is built up in response, this piezoelectric action of the tendon rubbing against the bone. The tendon gets moistened by the Solomon seal, increases in length, doesn't rub against the bone anymore. And then the Solomon seal decalcifies the bone spur. Done. And that's just one reason why I call herbs cheat codes, because they are. Let's talk about this. When I injured my knee for the 1 millionth time back in 2010, it was bad. It was really bad. When I was 20, I had orthoscopic surgery on my knee. The doctor said, if things keep going the way they are, you're going to be a cripple by the time you are 40, 45. That's what he told me. So back in 2010, I thought, well, I've really done it now. I had some good times, but I ran out the clock. And now here I am. I need an operation. So I started taking Solomon seal tincture. And in 3 days, I noticed things were changing for the better. Okay. A couple of weeks before I started using the Solomon seal, I stumbled upon Russian research papers on a substance called Moomiyo or Moomi. There's different names. It is a black, resinous, asphaltic, mineral-rich, herb-impregnated substance. It can be thousands of years old. It exudes from mountain ranges certain times of years at high altitudes. It's an adaptogen, one of the very few provable adaptogens in the world. Today, the words Moomiyo and Shilajit or Shilajit are sometimes used interchangeably, but in 2011, I purchased it was deliberately termed Moomiyo, so that's what I'm going to call it for this video. But someone had translated these Russian research papers on Moomiyo. They were dry, clinical, to the point. But in these papers, rapid bone repair after eating Moomiyo was discussed in adults and children, along with multiple other types of injuries. They would give people Moomiyo, then they would record their accelerated healing or lack thereof. The papers included failures as well as successes, which I really like. Don't tell me how many successes you've had. Tell me how many failures you've had as well. Then I'll make up my own mind. I thought I had these papers saved on a hard drive, but that was 4 hard drives or 4 computers and over a decade ago, so I can't find them. But so I'm reading about this stuff. I decided to try it. So I have some Moomiyo shipped to me. The chain of custody from the time the Moomiyo was collected in the mountains until it reached my door, very small chain of custody. I liked that. great supplier who I found just when I needed them most. I don't even think they're even in business anymore. Moomiyo smells awful, tastes worse. So you see this chunk, it looks like a piece of obsidian. This is solid Moomiyo. So I started taking the Moomiyo powder, and this was 3 days after I had started using the Solomon seal root. It was like rocket fuel adding Moomiyo to the Solomon seal root. The healing went off the charts. In my case, I couldn't believe it. A friend of mine who's in the medical profession, he's not a doctor, I want to be clear, but he's in the medical profession. He looked at my knee and he said, you're going to need surgery for that. There's no way out this time. You need an operation. After taking the Solomon seal and Moomiyo combination, I watched the excess fluid fade away. I watched, of course, the swelling went down, the pain went away. But most importantly, the overstretched ligament, after months of dealing with this complete nonsense, the overstretched ligament tightened up and my knee didn't spontaneously go back the opposite direction that it's designed to go. I was back to the way I was before this whole saga began. So then I told other people about this. This led to a formula being created, and then a lot of people started using this formula. Incredible accounts of people being helped with bone and joint issues. Doesn't happen for everyone who takes Solomon seal or even Solomon seal and Moomiyo as a combination, but it sure helped a lot of people. My phone rang one day. This was years ago. This guy had called me. He was the agent for a minor league baseball player who was, I don't know how to describe this process. When it comes to sports, I really could care less. It's probably all rigged anyway, but this minor league player had a chance to sign a contract with a major league team, but first he had to repair a shoulder injury, and they could not get this shoulder injury under control. So this agent calls me. He says, gave me the name of the guy who recommended him to me. And he says, what do we do? This kid is going to lose out on a lot of money if he cannot perform before signing the contract, because they're not just going to sign a contract. They want to see what they're getting for their money, and he couldn't perform. And the agent stood to lose a lot of money as well. I mean, this is how he makes his living. So I suggested the Solomon seal Moomiyo combination. There were 5 or 6 other herbs included as well, but the Solomon seal Moomiyo was basically the backbone of the formula. But all the herbs work together very well. So the guy had 2 weeks to heal. Okay, so he takes the Solomon seal Moomiyo and then the 5 herb combination, and he healed up just fine. Signed the contract, went on to make a lot of money. I like reports like that because I'm helping another human being, but I really like helping somebody who's working 40, 50, 60 hours to feed his family, working many hours a week to feed his family. I had a lady call me. She said, I'm a dock worker. It's hard physical labor. I'm in my 40s. I'm falling apart. I don't think I can do this much longer. Okay. She uses the Solomon seal Moomiyo formula, starts healing. Joints are working better. Shoulder pain fades. Back pain fades. I believe there's a wrist issue as well. Now, it's still hard physical labor, but now she can do it. And she made a point to call me and let me know how she was doing. And I really appreciated that. I really appreciated her doing that for me. So that's Moomiyo and Solomon seal. So let's get into some herbs. Herbs to help with bone repair would include nettle leaf, Latin Urtica dioica, has a high mineral content. A strong tea made out of nettles, alfalfa, oat straw, sage. This would be a good bone mineralizing drink to have 2 or 3 times a day, like 6 ounces. Gotu Kola, Latin, Centella asiatica. This is a great bone and joint healing herb. It's also a specific when the skin is red, hot, inflamed. And it's a great brain herb. Helps with memory, cognitive function. Used it many times. Now you can get these herbs in bulk by the pound, or if you want to spend a lot more money and get a lot less product, you can get them in capsules. I suggest the bulk option by far. Gotu Kola is a collagen stimulator, which of course makes it ideal for bone and joint health because we want it to stimulate the collagen production in the bones. But collagen is also part of the gut lining. Collagen is needed to prevent wrinkles. If you want to get somebody's attention, just tell them how to prevent wrinkles. Collagen and orthosilicic acid help tremendously in the anti-wrinkle department. I'm 87 years old. I take silica every day. To accelerate healing, look into TMG, trimethylglycine. This is useful for rebuilding cartilage and a whole lot more. Over the years, I have seen many people resolve long-standing health issues after they used many different products, many different protocols. They just use TMG, trimethylglycine. Helped them tremendously. It's a methyl donor, so it's going to help with thousands of reactions in the body, all over the body. It helps with getting your stomach acid pH back down to the 1.5 to 2.5 pH level. So many health issues begin with a weak stomach and a liver, which needs an attitude adjustment. TMG is effective, it's cheap, it's easy to use, 1,000 milligrams 3 times a day. Always check for contraindications before adding a new supplement to your daily routine. Let's talk about this. This is Eucommia bark. I purchased this from an underground Walmart in Guiyang, China. Eucommia humoides. The underground Walmart was quite an experience. I got yelled at by a manager for taking pictures of American ginseng and cordyceps, which were sitting out on a display table. The guy totally freaked out. Very interesting. Eucommia bark is a powerful yang herb. It is warming, sweet, good for kidney deficiency. This is the classic kidney tonic herb. If you have low back pain, weak knees, you might want to try some Eucommia. It is anti-inflammatory, antioxidant, hypotensive, antispasmodic. It's a diuretic. It is a great restorative botanical for connective tissue and the entire musculoskeletal system. I personally would add this to my daily diet if I had osteoporosis to increase my bone and joint health. That's just me. Eucommia contains flavonoid compounds like chlorogenic acid, ferulic acid, caffeic acid. Acids are your friend, not your enemy. Acids save your life every second of every day. Acids have been demonized. They're your friends. Eucommia is great for the bones, ligaments, tendons, helps with, again, with collagen production. So useful here. Make sure that the Eucommia bark that you purchase, if it's not in this bark form, if it's in a powder or liquid form, make sure it's from the bark. And they didn't just grind up a bunch of Eucommia tree leaves and present it as a tincture of Eucommia bark, because, I don't know, there just might be somebody out there doing that. Make sure the product you get is from the bark only. And gentlemen watching this, if you start taking real Eucommia bark and the mineral boron, which I mentioned earlier, 3 milligrams a day, don't be surprised if the South rises again, if you know what I mean. And I know you do. Let's talk about this. This is Boneset. This is extremely useful for influenza. Boneset and elder are probably at the top of the Western herbalism choices for influenza. Andrographis is also really good, but Andrographis isn't in the Western Materia Medica. I have used Eupatorium, Boneset for influenza. I recognized the beginning signs, grabbed some Boneset, made quick work of it, and you will sweat. This is a diaphoretic. However, this is about bones and joints, and Boneset is pretty amazing for the bones and joints as well. Bone and joint repair, broken bones. You have to make sure, if you're taking it internally, the Boneset has been dried out for 3 months or more. Boneset contains pyrrolizidine, alkaloids, and another alkaloid, I believe, which could lead to liver problems if used for a long period of time, or if a person already has compromised liver function. Do not use during pregnancy. Do not use if you are nursing. Don't give to kids. That being said, you can make a tea or a wash out of Boneset and use it externally. You can soak, let's say it's your wrist that hurts, your ankle, knee. You can wet a cloth with a strong Boneset tea and wrap it around your knee or elbow, lay it across your shoulder. Now the alkaloids are weakened and degraded after the Boneset has been dried for 3 or more months. I suggest at least 3 months, but you still have to observe those precautions. You can buy this in bulk. I have a ton of it growing outside just for a rainy day. It'll be harvested probably tomorrow. It's going to seed, as you can see. Now, if I had a broken bone, I would take just a few drops of the Boneset tincture a few times a day. And then I would use the external wet wrap with a strong Boneset tea. But Boneset has a way of getting the body to communicate and to increase recognition of where the broken edges of the bone are for correct alignment. So you have 2 broken edges, and then the bone sends out threads to find the opposite side and to orient it correctly, and then it starts knitting together correctly. If you are injured or sick and the Boneset tea tastes good to you, you probably need it. When it begins to repulse you, then the need for Boneset is at the end and probably will be of no further use to you. Eupatorium, Boneset is an emetic. If you drink a lot, you're going to vomit your brains out. I had to try it for myself. I drank a quart of Boneset tea in about 10 minutes, and then I projectile vomited all over the place, but it was over in 2 minutes because it just needs to get out of your stomach and then it's over. Kudzu root is an abundant, extremely abundant, good root used for bone, joints, cartilage. This is the plant that shows no remorse as it continues to take over Georgia, Alabama, Mississippi, and other states in the South as well. I now see that more and more companies are making kudzu root capsules and powders. Years ago, people were thinking, what do we do with this stuff? It is an invasive botanical nightmare. But kudzu root is good for torticollis. An old term for it is called wry neck, where the muscles in the neck spasm on one side and it'll pull your head permanently to one direction. It's not a fun time. Kudzu root works well here, and you're going to see, I'm going to make a prediction, you're going to see more and more uses for kudzu root in the next few years because it is so abundant. It does not make economic sense to have something so abundant and not figure out different uses for it. People will pay you to come and rip this stuff out of the ground. It's so bad. I have no doubt that someone out there is paying someone to rip it out of the ground. It's going to be mainstream in a few years' time. It appears to reduce cravings for alcohol as well. So here in this situation, you could add in fresh milky oats, kudzu root, and vitamin B3 flush niacin. If you Google Bill W, Alcoholics Anonymous, niacin, there's an interesting story in there about addiction and niacin. For the purists out there who prefer to get their nutrition only from foods and not supplements, I salute you. Pecorino Romano cheese would be an excellent addition to your daily diet for bone health. This cheese originates from the island of Sardinia and from on the mainland in Tuscany. It's not cheap. You got to take probably 90 grams a day to see the benefits to bone health and immune support. Men on the island of Sardinia live long lives, and they love their wine, they love their olives, and they love their Romano cheeses. 12 pounds of a marginal grade, not a fantastic grade, but a marginal grade, will set you back about $150 plus shipping, and then the price goes up depending on the quality. 12 pounds would be about a 60-day supply. So I like to throw in these non-standard for a channel which deals primarily with herbs. I like to throw in these non-standard foods or little-known herbs at the end of the video for people who hang in there. And there's a lot of people who like to try stuff like this from around the world, and they will spend the money. I have a few pounds sitting in my fridge. This really cuts your appetite down as well. Just my appetite went through the floor. It'll last for 10 to 12 months if stored correctly. Reggiano Parmesan cheese is another great choice. It's from the same area of the world. This is another great immune support food. I mentioned vitamin K earlier. MK4 is my preferred form. And you can get that in brie, speaking of cheese. These are not cheap foods. I will say this, if you think foods like this are expensive, try getting sick and see what that costs you. It's not fun. I think I'm out of herbs. Weight-bearing exercises. Okay, so stresses to the bone, weight-bearing exercises. This creates a piezoelectric charge in the bones, courtesy of silica and hydroxyapatite crystals in the collagen bone matrix. This results in an increased mineral deposition, as we covered earlier, more minerals being introduced into the collagen matrix of the bone. The bones sense this unusual weight and stress. The body says, oh my God, we're under attack. We have to fortify our position. And so the body does what it always does. It adapts. It diverts minerals and energy to the bones that are affected by the weight-bearing exercise to make them stronger for any future stress. This is what humans do. We adapt. But you have to give the body something to adapt to. Sitting on the couch, that's not enough. So look into weight-bearing exercises. Years ago, we used to use static holds. So for example, if it was the bench press, you'd lay on the bench, you'd put the safety locks in place. This was on the Smith machine, so you don't chop your head off. You take the weight off the pins, and you would bend the elbows slightly, just slightly, and hold it there motionless. We started at 200 pounds and went all the way up in a couple of months to holding 630 pounds, and actually more. 630 pounds was the limit of the bar. We ran out of space to put plates on. So we just would stack plates on top of the plates that were already there. Eventually we had to lay on the floor because the floor was a better support for our back and shoulders compared to the narrow bench when you got 630, 700 pounds. There were 3 or 4 of us who would meet at the gym and do this. A static hold is good for people with joint injuries because you're not moving the joints. You avoid those shear forces which can injure the joints. You're just cracking the elbows and just holding it motionless. This is for 5 to 15 seconds, okay? So elbows locked out, drop it, just that, an inch. Like I say, we went from 200 to over almost 700 pounds in a couple months. There was muscle increase. You can do the same thing with the leg press machine. You can use enormous amounts of weight if you just bend the legs slightly and hold that weight motionless. Just crack the knees about an inch. You want to engage the safeties when doing this. Do not forget to engage the safeties. We went, just in my case, I went from a few hundred pounds up to over 1,200 pounds. And this was after my knee injury. This was years after my knee injury. This pressure creates tremendous signaling for the bones to remineralize, remodel. It makes for stronger bones, and it makes for really strong ligaments and tendons as well. So for older people, get a couple spotters to help you. This could really be helpful for you. You don't have to use tremendous amount of weights, just stress the bones. Gelatin, unflavored. This is really good for the cartilage. stiff joints, hips, arthritis. I first heard about this from Joe Wallach's Dead Doctors Don't Lie cassette tape back in 1992 or 1993. This is cheap. It's easy to obtain, easy to use, quick acting. You can kind of just tuck this away in the back of your mind. Maybe one day you won't have access to herbs or supplements. You can still get benefit from using unflavored gelatin. This is not a brand recommendation or suggestion or anything. It's just giving you an example of what's easily available out there. So there you have it. The basics listed out for you for superior bone and joint health. The basics. The minerals, the vitamins, the black Moomiyo goo, the herbs, the electricity, the exercise, the cheese. I hold nothing back. So have fun with all that. Break a leg. My name is Shawn. I am one with nature, and I will see you in the next video.